Hi, Shipra.
Yeah, hi Chetan, I can hear you now. Yeah, it looks like there were some audio issues with the room. So welcome Chetan to our clubhouse.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks guys for confirming and thanks for being here with us. So we have Chetan with us, and the topic for today is payments. Chetan, will you like to introduce yourself before we start?
Okay, I was not ready for the introduction, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
just
have
a
about
brief. Yeah,
yeah, I have about 11 plus years of experience,
great.
and most of it comes from a kind of payment background.
Mm-hmm.
So different sort of payments. So yes, so that's why basically I thought perhaps I can help anyone who is looking out to switch to this domain. And like again, as a BA, basically the approach or whatever I be sharing the information, so that would be from a BA perspective as well. So I think that should help the audience here.
Great, great. Thanks, Chetan, for being with us. So, in case anyone from audience would like to join in, please raise your hand, and I'll call you on stage. You can ask any question, or if you have any clarifications with from Chetan, you are most welcome to join us on stage. And if you do belong to payment background, please do join us. For sharing your experiences as well. Hi, Parikshit. Yeah. Chetan, I think we are already eight
I think
minutes
and
past, so we are good
thank you
to
Chetan for
start.
taking out.
Yeah. Thanks, Chetan.
Okay,
Yeah.
so can we
So
proceed?
yes. Chetan, what we will do is, we'll go through one module, let's say, and then we'll give space to audience to ask any questions if they have any questions related to the topic, and then we'll switch over to next module. Will that work for you?
Yes, that would be fine.
Yeah.
As
Sure.
anyway, like the initial session, maybe it will be just a build up, and I'm not really sure. So that material that has been shared across, I think by Shipra in the group, if some of us have gone through that, so that would help actually
Mm-hmm.
to just begin. So yeah.
Yeah. So let's assume people have not gone through the material. That's the general assumption, Chetan. So
Yes, so
let's
that's why
let's
the first
yeah,
session hopefully will try to just build up around the payments basics.
right, right. So yeah, we are good to start, Chetan. Over to you.
Thanks, Shipra. Thanks everyone who is on board. So again, like the topic for today is payments, and just to start with, like again, I'm not sure like if what is the background you have from my audience, but um, to start with at least, like even if somebody has zero background, to vary the basic of it comes from, so basically we know that any kind of payments the banking is involved. So how do we see the banking in the context of nation? So from a nation perspective, economy is key. So for any nation it is considered to be the economy of it, right? But if we go down to economy, so banks are considered the heart of economy. And then, if we think banks as a fully functional human being, the payments basically are the kind of um, nerves we have. So, all kind of nervous system where the communication or the actual flow, or maybe the you can say the blood uh, of the system that flowing through the body. So, like payment keeps anything that is happening in a economy alive. So, payments are basically fundamental to any business that we see around us. And I think it's obvious, right? Like, I'm not sure if you have some question around it, but isn't it obvious, right? And any business, or for example, what exactly a business, right? We can think it two way basically. It could be someone trying to build a product, selling a product, or it's either a service. So either they are selling service or product. That are two fundamental type of business that we see around. But to do any business at all, everyone needs money or the payments to be there, right? So the business may need to um, buy raw material to build whatever they are trying to do, or maybe paying salary to the peoples, just like common exchange, like we are exchanging money, etc. So like again, these are very basic things. But how do it works in term of banking, right? So let's focus on that. So I'm not sure. Again, accounting is one term that is very key to all of this happening. So accounting is basically the calculation of inflow and outflow of the money for any entity. Okay, and it consists of basically two things: the debit and credit. Okay, that is the basic of all the payments, uh, or payment systems or payments network, whatever it is. The basic of it, debit and credit, and based on that, basically we have different parties involved and different type of instrument as well, that what we call payment instruments. So if we look at the parties, so first we need to understand what are the different parties that can be involved. So imagine like we are doing payments. The first thing is we need two-person, right? One is paying to other, so the other could be like it could be a merchant or business or anything, but like we need two parties. So one party is paying, other is getting the money. Now the payer or the who is paying, so there are a lot of terminologies around. I think it will be true for any domain, not just banking. But again, I think that would be helpful if you are very just starting out to read all different terminologies around a certain domain. So, for example, again, accounting and like again, these are very basics of banking. Okay, so debit and credit. Now, if you see the parties are also based on the debit and credit. So one side we have a debit party. So I hope like again, debit is just that money is going out of your account, and credit is money is coming into your account. Just want to make sure like again. So debit and credit again. Debit side, now what we see, what are the terminologies we see is debtor. One is debtor. Okay. Um, one could be payer. So lot of these terminologies that we have in payments, so these will be derived from these terms. Okay, so again, we'll see like how it goes. Then again, at the creditor side, who is getting credited, creditor is one, and payee is another, and there are so many other. We will see those like as time. Now, these are two main parties where the payments could be maybe initiated or they want to initiate. Now, what are the other parties that get involved here now? Uh, so you can't pay money directly, right? Like we hope, we think that we are paying directly, but there are other entities involved as well. So if you think like if you are doing UPI, just you and the other person, that's not true, right? So what other parties are involved now? To make a payment, you need to have an account, and to have an account, you need to go to a bank. Okay, right? That's why like the thing economy, that again, the banking being part of economy. So you need to have an account with a bank. So that is one party got involved. So we'll take an example that I want to pay to anyone, like in the audience, maybe Shipra. So I need to have account with certain bank, maybe HDFC. Now Shipra also need to have an account with some bank to accept that payment. So clearly we got two other parties involved, which is now my bank and the other party who is going to get credited, Shipra's bank. Okay. So again, what we'll call them, perhaps this payer bank or payee bank or the debtor bank or the creditor bank. So that's how the terminology we will keep using, but these are derived from the again the very basics that we try to understand. So now what we have is four parties. There's something missing. How how these banks interact with each other. Now that's where basically the payments come into the picture. Now I have an account, I have money in that. Shipra have an account, and again we don't have to worry if she have money or not. She is going to get credited into that account. Like I hope that is active at least. So now uh, I give instruction to my bank, which is HDFC, via any mean. So those means what is easily available for me in India, if you see, could be a UPI, it could be a NEFT payment, it could be IMPS payment, and there are, I think, there are multiple other different kind of options. So all these methods to pay are called instruments or the payment instruments. Okay, and again these are also divided in two ways, two sides, which is again debit instrument and credit instrument, or debit based or credit based. Now, uh, what are the credit based instruments? Those simply where the payer who wants to pay, basically me in this case, is initiating a request or what we say instruction of payment. Okay, so I want to pay Shipra. I am just going to my UPI. Inputting the account number or like her UPI ID plus the amount and send. Okay, so that's basically the instruction that I have generated, and that is going to my bank. Why it is going to my bank now? So okay, so there are multiple things involved. So I'm not going into very much complexity of it, but to basically see like to payment should happen, what exactly we need, right? We we need payer again, one account, right? At both the sides. Now that account should have funds as well, right? So basically, when I'm sending instruction to my bank, so they will at least check that I have that much money which I'm trying to send out. Okay. Other There could be other parameters. For example, the UPI like have a stupid limit of 10 transaction, I think. So if I'm doing an 11th transaction within 24 hours, it will decline. So these are kind of we can say proof that okay, the payment is not directly going, but it is going to my bank, which is basically trying to understand that payment if it qualify all the rules and regulations we have. Rules and regulation like again it is different thing, but like the funds are, these are the very basics check. So we'll see like what are those different things banks do with the payment, what they try to verify. Yes, so the payments basically initiated or the by the payer, and such payment is called the credit-based payments or the credit-based instruments, where I am paying and I am also instructing. Okay, I am the payer, I am also instructing. Now there could be another scenario. The other side of it is the debit-based instrument. For example, checks. The checks. So how do we basically use the checks, right? I have a check. I give it to, so I need to pay. So I have a check. I give it to the one whom I am paying. He will do what he will do. He will basically give that to his bank. Okay. He will submit it in his bank. Now the instruction in this side is being initiated by the party which is getting credited. Okay, so instruction is coming from the creditor side. When the instruction arrives at the bank, So we are thinking from the we are thinking from the bank's perspective. So when it reaches to the bank again it will validate whatever the basic validation we have, and then pay it out, right? It will initiate the payment. So in this case, basically the direction of payment instruction and direction of fund transfer is different. Okay, the earlier case it was same. So I was paying, the payment is moving from me to debitor, and instruction is also moving the same way, but the debit side of it, the debit based instruments, for example, like if we just go deep down, there are different direct debit transactions both in MT and MX messages. So we are not going that far, but those are also the example of the same way, or maybe the billers that we have perhaps. So the billers are basically generated by the who want to get paid. So they generate those billers if we have actually uh, accepted those, right? Like, and I think even in UPI we can now ask to pay, right? There is an option now that we are asking them to pay. So basically, I am instructing, but the fund is incoming to me. So the different of there is a different direction of instrument and fund transfer. So that is the basic uh, what we say, the difference between the credit based and debit based instruments. Another example could be checks. Okay, checks and you the okay. So the same concept is basically what we call pull and push payment. Okay, so when I am a the credit based payment, basically the creditor is pushing them to the sorry, debtor is pushing them to the creditor. But when we say pull request or the pull payment, then basically it's the creditor who is pulling the payment. Kind of, he's asking that the debtor should pay him, and like if he pays, so the payments goes in other direction. Okay, so that is the very basic of it. Um, I want to share one definition before we move forward. Just give me a moment. I'm not sure if anyone have question. I can just take those now, or we can proceed
Yeah,
further. I'm not
thanks,
sure.
thanks, Chetan, for explaining such a complex topic in such layman terms. It's really easy to understand the way you are explaining it. So just to clarify, pay and payer, right? So payer is the person who is making the payment, and pay is the person who is receiving the payment. Is it, or it's one and
Right,
the same thing?
right.
So
Payer
payer.
is paying, right, and pay
Huh.
is at the receiving end.
Okay.
So again, and like sender and receiver is similar terms now. Sender, creditor, and the payer. Okay, and other hand, receiver, uh, creditor, and the pay. And now we can just attach banks as well. So it will be either pay bank. So we use these terms interchangeably. So it might be confusing at times. So
Yeah. So pay is equivalent to creditor, right?
yes, who is
Okay.
getting paid?
Okay. And another question, Chetana, you mentioned that it is very important for a person who has come into payments domain to understand the terms, right? So, um, I is there what's the best source to understand the basic terms at least for payment domain?
I have shared that across.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
that's the like very first kind of chapter there. The
Okay. Great. Great. Thanks, Chetan.
and what
Um,
one important thing about payments domain is basically um, most of it, or I'll say like not 100%, but 95% of everything is available on a public domain. So like there are a lot of resources. I'm not sure if people are not able to find those somehow.
Good to know that. So yes, the floor is open in case you have any questions for Chetan. We have talked about debit and credit accounting. We have talked about different instruments for making the payments. So in case you have any questions, do let us know. Parikshit will start with you. Do you have any questions for Chetan?
Hi, Shipra. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I recently, was getting some few calls regarding the payment domain. I was looking out for opportunities for BA. Now they were asking me some peculiar questions about, some certifications to do with ISO 20022, and I have no idea about it. So can you please shed some light on this? If someone is trying to, take their first step into this domain, what are the things that they need to do, and if the certification will be helpful, where to do them, and how to pursue this?
Chetan, will you like to take this question now, or will you be covering it at towards the end?
I hope I'm getting there. At least I'll be covering basics of it. Regarding the training, again, what they will teach you, it will be like very much kind of uh, hard to say, right? So I'm not really sure if any working professional, working person in the industry um are taking those trainings. So that would work best. But otherwise, they'll be of limited use. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
um, what I would suggest is basically to self study first and before going into unless you have very good reviews about some particular course. But again, I don't think they will be covering it in depth.
Okay.
Okay, it
Uh,
is basically your hard effort, what you want to learn, like curiosity that you have, and the time you spent on the reading those. Because what I mentioned earlier, resources are everywhere. So there are no, this is not the case like we are not able to find the resources. So at least it's basically the time you are going to devote and the approach that you have.
Okay, Chetan,
l-
thank you for that. But I
I'll
wanted to
be
understand. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'll be covering the other part of your question around the
Okay.
ISO. So we are
All
going
right.
there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chetan. Girish.
Yeah, hi everyone. So the most of the questions which even I had was only it was asked by Prakshit. So when I do not have and I was looking for the switch to payments domain. So yeah, as of now nothing. Yeah.
So maybe just to reiterate, uh, one thing about switching to a domain, um, we should have at least kind of mid to long term targets. So one thing is that we should not be hurrying it. Like if you have very aggressive target of 1 2 months, then I want to learn and I want to switch. So that can happen in cases, but like that's not entirely useful to have that kind of mindset, because like if you are not able to find the job in or not able to switch in 2 or 3 months, then get you might get demotivated or dejected. So at least one should have 4 to 6 months of target or the time frame in mind if you really want to switch to a new domain, and make sure that you have enough understanding. So it's not just about switching, right? Because we see a lot of people who have been able to switch based on the knowledge that they got from the maybe internet or different sources or courses, I'm not sure. But then again, they face challenges while they are at job, and like the challenges could be really I'll say it will basically depend on the project, but it could be really hard at times because there's a lot of things going on in the industry, and they might have very high expectation based on the experience that you carry. Or so again, so that will depend, right, on different number of factors. But at least the idea behind it should be like to have mid long term targets and ensure that you are doing a lot of like putting in a lot of efforts before you try to just switch.
Um, does that help, Girish?
Yes, absolutely. Because in my case, I've already worked on the few MT and MX messages as well. I was part of the payment reconciliation in the BA role, but the before it comes the file to the system, I was working on the. I wanted to know about the end-to-end flow, like how exactly the payment flow works. So that's exactly what I was looking actually. Because even when I gave the interview as well, they would be asking the experience as well, having the knowledge of these MT and MX different types of measures, which Chetan was saying that either the cash one or the credit one or the debit and all those things. So yeah, it would help actually. Yeah. I understand from his point what you were saying.
Okay, thanks. So can we proceed?
Yeah, just a minute, Chetan. So thanks, Girish. Murli?
Hello, I'm audible.
Yes, Murli, you are audible.
First of all, thank you, Shipra, for the organizing this, and Chetan for your sharing your experience. So, yeah, my question is that you spoke about push and pull payments, right? Yes, I'm aware of the concept, but I am having a difficulty to relate the use cases to it. Whereas when I say that, when full payments, I understand whenever we do SIP, we set up a mandate, so that is automatically becomes a full payment. At the same time, when I take a loan, automatically for certain duration, the amount is getting debited automatically on certain day without setting a mandate. So whether that is a full payment or how does it work? At the same time, right? RD also like we are setting up for a certain period and it is getting auto debited. But whereas it is called in a push payments, like we are setting up an standing instruction to it. So I'm just not very clear to relating the use cases to this pull and push payments. Can you please explain on that part, Sultan?
I'm not entirely sure of the question. So, uh, you
Yeah, yeah.
mean to say, so you mentioned couple of types of maybe the full payment request, right?
Hmm.
So
No, I would like to understand the real-time use cases to map it to push or pull payments. For example, uh, RD,
you already
let's take
mapped it,
RD.
right? You already mapped it. So, for example,
Hmm, hmm,
the the initial example that you gave of loan, okay, so
hmm,
it's an debit based instrument. Basically,
yeah.
you are signing an agreement with them. So for any, so one thing to just clear out here.
Hmm,
Thanks for highlighting actually this help. So any debit based instrument that we have, okay, or at least digital instruction that need to have a mandate attached to it. Okay, so whenever we say the facility of auto debit, so basically either we are uh, checking that on the go, so whether like the the payment or the payer basically in this case would be verifying it, or either he will have to give in return that I accept that this particular person or entity, they can send me a request and it can be automatically debited from my account. So that's the case of the loan as well, so that we have it as an agreement. Even for billers that we have, um, for any billers, the very first time it will, I think, do two things. It will try to verify your account, maybe do a 1 or 2 rupees payment, or it will specifically ask you to accept it. So that basically act as a kind of one-time uh, instruction taken, or maybe what we say, the mandate received from the, or the consent, so that you are consenting that they can in future auto debit from your account. So all these are basically the debit based. And again, like you mentioned, the other case, the you setting up an RD basically. So in this case, it's a credit based, right? Because you are the one initiating the instruction. In any other case, basically, for example, the loan. So it's the debtor side which is asking you to pay, right? Because it might just change as well. Same is for the biller. So they are asking you to pay, or kind of pulling the payment from you, or pulling the money from you, right?
Yes, Chetan, that is right. Since that is where my I'm not very clear about, because you said in RD, yes, I agree, because I am setting up it my own will. At the same time, the same goes for mutual funds also, right? I am setting it and I am creating a mandate for it. Whereas for that, it is considered as a debit instrument where I am setting up a mandate. But in RD, it is considered as a push payment where even though I set it myself and auto debit is happening. So that's where I'm not able to relate.
Uh, Actually, I am not really sure about the SIP thing. So really, I haven't
Okay.
seen that or personally experienced that use case. So maybe I can
Okay.
check it later, and if you can just ping me
No
over
problem. Yeah.
Telegram. Okay.
Yeah. 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 Sure, Chetan. Not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Murli. Mayur? Mayur, do you have any question? We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Mayur. Please leave the room and join us again, and we'll come back to you after Chetan, uh, shares his views further. Thank you. Yeah, Chetan.
Okay. So okay. So last we were discussing the parties, so different parties and instrument. I think it came in between, but yes, I think it was important to clear out. Um, Now the final thing in the picture. So we have uh, a sender. So we'll leave debtor and creditor for now, because I think we have the clarity on that part. So we'll use simple terms which are sender and receiver. So this is more easy to use as well. So we have a sender, we have a sender's bank, we have receiver, and we have receiver's bank. Okay. What we were discussing. So there is an instruction pushed either from the sender or either receiver. Their bank is going to verify that instruction and then send to the other bank. No. So that doesn't happen. How it happens is basically we need one more party in between, which is most of the cases is the central bank of the country, right? And why central bank? Because they are basically responsible for the anything related to economy of the nation. So that is why basically that you can see that connection. And the central bank is again, just to understand, this is not the only or the primary work of the central bank as a kind of doing the mediation for these payments. So it is just one aspect of the central bank's responsibility. So most of the cases they create multiple sub organizations. For example, NPCI is just one of them. Like I think they own some 5 to 10 different entities which are under RBI umbrella, and those take care of different sort of payments. Okay, so there is uh, again there could the retail banking is again one aspect. Then there are different money markets or the different equity markets. So everything, those have their own settlement system as well. So our focus is going to be mostly around the retail and the corporate banking, at least my focus, or that's where my experience comes from. So yeah, so moving on, the central bank now plays an role of mediator uh, to have these payments done. So the sender bank, it will send the instruction to the uh, central bank, or maybe its subsidiary, or we'll say it as the clearing house. Okay, so we will leave the central bank. I wanted to say because most of the countries it is the central bank. So it is the mediating party is called the clearing house system of that country. And now a country might have one or more clearing house as well. Okay, So that is also a thing to note. The clearinghouse now receives the instruction and then it forward that instruction to the receiving bank. Okay, so this is a very basic kind of scenario. Now, now there are multiple things that comes in the picture. Before that, I wanted to again go back to the definition of payments or the payment systems actually. Okay, so now I think at least we know on a high level what are the different parties involved in a payment. Now we are coming to payment system, right? The system, when we say system, is basically is combination of all of these things, right? All of these things basically, I'll say not things, there are humans involved as well, but things like all these parties. So banks, be it the users or the sender receiver like you and me, or the clearinghouse, and then whatever happens between those banks, right? We are talking about instruments, etc. But if we think again, so these instruments are also some sort of messages that are flowing between the banks, so and between these different parties. Okay, and we can say like we are our focus is on digital payments, so these are kind of digitally communicated messages, right? Now back to the definition of it. So, this definition is given by the BIS, which is called Bank for International Settlements, and it is again kind of a global entity. A set of instruments, procedures, and rules to the for the transfer of funds among system participants. Okay, so this definition is very important, at least for the fundamentals. Um, Set of instruments. So we have discussed instruments, right? Set of instruments means there are multiple type of instruments. We discussed some of those. Now UPI, etc. Then there are cards, right? Then checks, etc. These are also instruments, and lot of different variety of instruments that are coming up. Sorry, uh, a set of instruments, procedures. Okay. Now, what is this procedure actually? Is this procedure is the definition of clearing and settlement. So we have not reached there, but the kind of again clearing and settlement. We will come to it. It's actually very important. And finally, set of payment instruments, procedures, and rules. Now, rules of transfer, or we are talking about a payment system, right? So anything is related to payment. So when we are saying instruments, these are payment instruments, procedures for these payments, and the rules of fund transfer. Now, the rules of fund transfer would or may vary between instruments and procedures, right? So, rules are just to like do something, some to make a process happen. We need some rules. Okay, so we know that okay, this process is going right way. So that will change if an instrument change. Okay, it will change if the procedure change. Procedure is again we are saying clearing and settlement. Will come to it shortly. And these rules also define the communication channel that we have between these entities. Okay, this is basically procedure and rules. The both basically it will define. Now I'll just come to the clearing and settlement. Okay, what is clearing and what is settlement? And this is kind of very key question as well. People ask it in uh, interviews that what is the difference between clearing and settlement. So, and in this both the terms, settlement is the actual term of importance. Okay, settlement, will go to settlement first. Settlement is basically when the actual fund transfer is happening between the two parties. Okay, The settlement is the actual movement of fund between two parties. So that is called settlement. So the settlement could be for any means. So it could be like my Kirana payment or some come maybe payment to a worker, anything. But with two parties, they have exchanged something, maybe a service or a good or something, and one party is liable to pay to another. When the actual transfer of money is happened, that is the point we call it is settled. Okay, whatever their liabilities were, those are now settled and they are even. So that is basically the settlement. Anything before settlement, anything happening before settlement is called clearing. Okay, and like now clearing can have multiple things. So like the very first start, like the initiating of the instrument itself, right? So that comes under clearing. Then the instrument going to bank verifying it, etc., etc. Everything comes under clearing. The settlement is the actual settlement, the full and final. Okay, so there are very rare uh, scenarios where there are these will not work, but you really don't have to worry about those. Those are actually not related to retail or corporate, so those are more of investment banking thing. So I hope like clearing and settlement is at least like the definition is clear. Now, when we say settlement, we need to dig in more detail here because that will open the kind of next phase that we are going to focus on that. The settlement is again, like we mentioned, that between two parties, we are settling something. Again, going back to the very basic thing, you and me can't settle anything, at least in the traditional banking. Okay, so that's where basically, if you think about blockchain, why it is so big and huge, or the kind of say the next breakthrough in the payment world, is because it gives you ability to what do we say, circumvent the whole different parties. You own your funds and you can move it to anyone. So it is decentralized, and whatever the traditional banking system that we have, it is like fully centralized. Okay, so apart from blockchain, like everything that we see is kind of a centralized system. So we can't pay directly. And now, who is going to settle between them? So it's not you and me. I have sent instruction and my job is done. The settlement is going to happen between the banks. Okay, and now again to do that settlement, then that's why we have the concept of that clearing house. Now, on a very high level, I think I'll be sharing that document with we have glossary. So there can be five, six different varieties of settlement we send. But at a very uh, high level, there is two type of settlement. One is which is instant, right? What we call is RTGS. So real time, so means it's instant gross settlement, like full amount uh, payment done. Okay, so that is RTGS. The other type of payment is basically the deferred payment. Okay, the deferred settlement. Deferred means it is delayed. So that is how the NEFT works. Now, again, just to attach key concepts to these two, right? Why we need two different system for payments. So that will depend basically kind of the type of payment that we have. For example, I am making a payment of 10 rupees. Okay, and on a other side, there could be a payment of like worth thousand of crores of rupees. So if my payment is stuck for some reason, I can, I hope, manage, right? But if that sort of payment is stuck, I'm not sure what are the different implications that the banks will have, right? Because they have to answer their clients. So so that's where the importance comes of these two, having these two different system. So whenever we say the, so there are two type of payments, like in term of worth, is the low value or high value. So whenever we are saying low value payment, that means it's the payments volume will be high. So low value equivalent to high volume, and uh, other way, a high value would be equivalent to low volume. Okay, so that's why basically they have different system built, and when we have that low value system, so we mostly assuming that these are not very urgent payments, and the amounts are also less, right? So they um, they settle them in a deferred way or in batches. So the actual term is the net, I think, net deferred settlement, something like that. Net time deferred settlement, something like that. Okay, I exactly don't remember the term. So basically, there are two things in that. One is it is delayed. So I sent maybe 100 rupees via NEFT. The other person, he's going to receive in 2 or 3 hours. We know that, right? We have different windows for NEFT, that every, I think now it is every 1 hour. I'm not 100% sure. So we have these windows. So what will happen? The settlement is going to happen in these windows. So whatever payments request they are getting, they will keep accumulating those, and then finally settled uh, will like with the other party in a net way. So they will net everything, and finally, so you'll see, right, what will be happening there. So for example, there are two banks, HDFC and Punjab National Bank, for an example. So it's a simple example to understand. So lot of people from HDFC, they are paying to people in PNB. Lot of people in PNB, they are paying to uh, like HDFC. So if it was a gross settlement, any instruction or the any RTGS instruction, whenever it is initiated, it is directly sent. So no, there is no wait time, nothing. So that's why it is instantly, almost like whatever 10-15 seconds it takes, it is cleared. Uh, but on the other hand side, the low value payments, or maybe NEFT, that is equivalent in India. So NEFT payment, they will keep accumulating those, they'll keep batching it. Finally, they will see, they will add up all the uh, debits of one bank and all the credits. Finally, because we don't have to give, right? Okay, these are 10, 10, 10, 10, send multiple payments. So they will just add up everything. Okay, okay, this maybe. So one bank will be debited, one single payment will do the transfer between these banks. Okay, so just imagine the case if we try to settle the low value payment in the RTGS system, like instantly. Like the systems will actually blow up, right? Because it is so high volume, all the system will go down. And the same thing, like I said about UPI, why they have done is basically just to reduce the system capacity, not reduce, basically that keep in it balance. Okay, so if there is unlimited, maybe people are playing with it, like I'm not sure what are different use cases people can do, but like again, the volume would be so high that their system would go down. So that's why basically the concept of like setting it in a deferred way or net way, or settling it if it is urgent, again use the RTGS method. Now, the one more thing here. Now we are just talking about the domestic payment. So this is a separate concept of domestic and international as well, right? So we are just as of now trying to understand the basics, and again the the transactions that are domestic in nature. So now the system that we have, NEFT, for example, now every country they have built their own different way of this clearing and settlement. So they have their own name, own terminology, but the basics will mostly remain the same. So there will be same credit debit happening between these entities that we talked about. One important thing here, so like some there could be multiple example, like MEPS is for, I think, Malaysia is the system. UK have multiple domestic system. They have CHAPS, something BACS, CHAPS, okay, and US have ACH payments. Okay, so all countries have their own kind of clearinghouse. Now that makes it sounds a bit difficult, but generally what happens if we know the key players or the key countries, UK, US, so few countries can give us a very good idea, and most of these works in a similar way. So that's why like that knowledge built around one can help in many other cases. So even though these can be different, but if you see about the international payments, now just shifting a bit. So if we see the international payment or the RTGS payments, so those are more sophisticated and follow more in most cases follow a single pattern or the kind of only one or two different ways you will see those, right? For example, India have okay, I'll just come to it later. The third thing basically we were talking. So I think we are pretty much clear on the different parties how they try to settle it, at least in the domestic context. Now, one part, so we talked about the procedures, right? Instrument procedures and the rules. Now coming to rules, uh, or to go back the actual question that we had, right? How we are those instruments we are talking about, how this payments is being made. To do that, earlier what was happening, maybe I think 30, 40 years back, so banks they had to do something, right? Their banks are like very old. So they had to do business, they had to do payments. What they did, there were no standards at that, so they used their own standards. Okay, but think about a case, right? Like if I tell you to pay me, or maybe okay, so give me an instruction. Okay, the 10 people are asked to give instruction to pay. So somebody will say, pay me, or maybe, can you pay me? Can you please pay me? So the same kind of thing, right? If we try to understand it, not having the standards in place. So when there are different entities involved in a single system, they should have a common way to communicate. Or maybe I can feel like the very first time I came to South India, so I was not aware about the local languages, and there was no communication, single way of communication between us, right? So we had to use the sign language. So that was kind of stuff the banks were doing earlier. Then they realized that okay, it won't go along that way. So we need to have some standards, and that's where basically Swift comes into the picture. The Swift basically was developed by the banks itself. Lot of different banks all around the world, they came together. They like maybe brainstormed, or I'm not sure what they did. So finally they came up with the idea of having a single system, or maybe a single type of messaging system that any entity, any entity related to banking, or mainly bank, but there are NBFCs. So they can use to communicate with each other in a single way, in a single standard way. And that's why like these messages comes into the picture. So when we say, for example, I'm just going a bit further, MT101, I'm not sure how many of you heard, or MT103. This is a very popular payment message, corporate payment message. This payment, now whenever we say MT103, its definition, or it has been already defined. Okay, it has been, the message has been defined, that what this message will do. Its content has been defined, the structure of the message, right? When we say message, right? For example, even if it is a kind of an application, so we had a format, we had to write to the whatever the headmaster or something, subject this. So this message, these messages do have a structure. They are called like different blocks. They have 5 blocks. Each message, basically each Swift message is having 5 blocks. Then each block is fixed, that what this block will have, this what this character would mean. Then it further it have fields, different kind of fields, we can say tag names. But ultimately if we see, it's just a way to capture the information, right? So we want to capture the information from sender to receiver so that we can make that payment happen. So what are the different details we can capture in a simple payment? So what we need, at least we need an account number, right? From whom we are paying. We need an account number, whom we are paying. We need amount, right? What I want to pay, and I need funds. So that is a separate thing. So at least these three information is very basic to anything. Right? I need these things, right? So these kind of things basically are the things that are sent through these messages. But those are very well defined that okay, this particular tag, it will have sender's name, or maybe this particular field, it will have sender's account. This particular field will have a remark, just a remark, maybe sender to receiver remark. This field will have amount. So these are different kind of example of the fields that a message will have. That again, if the message change, basically, then these fields also might change, right? So one message is meant to do something, other message is meant to do something, and same way there are, I think, more than 300 messages we have. Okay, two, three hundred different messages if we calculate all. Sorry, but the key messages remains still in the range of 20-30. Okay, so don't maybe get frightened with a large number of messages. So those messages, basically a lot of messages deal with certain area of the business, right? Like we said, so some deals with corporate banking, some deals with money markets, some deals with just like accounting statement stuff. So that's where the Swift came in, and it became very kind of the central piece of everything over the globe, right? And if you see, right, the recent developments where Russia, they said okay, we'll push, they have already pushed Russia out of Swift, I'm not sure, but there was some talks around it. So these kind of things makes it so important because they'll be just pushed out, so nobody can send payment to Russia internationally, because if they are Swift out of Swift network. Now, Swift again, like we mentioned, so they have very well organized. So everything they have is documented and is available on their website. When we say everything, means the different, so they have divided it in different series of messages. When we say like MT1, so that is called one series, right? Again, I think maybe next time I'll have something to refer, at least a very basic presentation or some document. So it is actually useful if you can see those. So MT1 to 9 series, and again that then message will change. One, it could be 01, MT 101, 102, 103, and each message means something. Okay, but again there are totally maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 key messages that we have, and if we go field wise, hardly there are 50 to 60 different fields. So if we know these, like we know everything of payments. But again, just to understand, to read through those fields, how they are used in different context, different payments, because their behavior might change. So yes, I think empty. Now I'll just go back a bit. Uh, so these were the standards that and we call these rules. Okay, so the format mostly remains the standard Swift format, and it is like very much made for it, the format that we are talking about. Now if you see again, like there has to be some upgrade, right? Now there were some limitation with the existing format, and that's why Swift itself, okay, so they were, you know, in the sideline, they were also working. How do we go to the next level? So when we are saying, and there were a couple of questions around it, ISO 20022. So this is the next generation format, or the communication format, or communication message set of messages that are to be used and also being used. It's not like that. So I think there are many, what we say. clearinghouse, which they are using it since some 5-10 years. So SEPA being one. SEPA is already using ISO formats for years. Okay. So ISO 20022, two, three things basically why they had to shift or think to shift. So the format that we have currently, the Swift format, or that is actually ISO as well. It is ISO 15022, if I remember correctly. So the current standard, they are very will say rigid in the formation, very defined structure, but they have very limited space to hold. For example, many of the fields, okay, any field basically, they can't cross, the value can't cross more than 35 character. Okay, think about a case like if you have to write your address, then what will happen? I'm not sure like all can fit an address within 35 characters. So the data is being split. So that kind of limitation that with the data we have. And there are multiple other limitations. We'll not just go into that as of now, but maybe you can read it through the documents. I think I have mentioned that out. So so that's why basically, because of the limitation of the existing system, they want to move to ISO 20022. Then it offers a lot of flexibility to us, right? So if you are aware about the XML, so XML is anyway a very much kind of um, what we say easy format, so to read. So at least on the internet or the digital world, XML, if you try to find a XML parcel, you will get thousands of parsers, right? But if you try to search the Swift message parser, okay, either I don't think like it will be available for free. So there are different companies basically, they're earning just to create that parser. Otherwise, you have to build it from scratch. So that's the case with the Swift. So that is also one kind of very big disadvantage, right? So and XML also gives us the flexibility to define tags, etc. at will, right? You just had to add a new tag. Adding a new tag or information in an Swift message means a very big headache. Okay, so now the XML standard itself, if you see, they have actually given hundreds of different new tags before. Like even most of those tags don't have much uses as of now, but they are looking for the future. Okay, so in future we might be using this field. So current industry or the current, if you see the payments world over all, still I think 80% of the system they are still using Swift, the like the existing standards, Swift standards. That's why it is important to understand those as well, and we can't just directly learn ISO or MX messages. Uh, s- but like again, Swift have given ultimatum. Uh, One very first wave is going live this year of like migration, we say. So ultimately the plan is to migrate everything, all these legacies, from the legacy to ISO 20022. And that's why basically there are a lot of opportunities in the market where maybe they are looking for someone kind of experts who can help them with the migration. Okay, I'll stop here so now, because the next part from here is basically to start looking into these messages and trying to understand those flows. So I think, yes, I'm not sure if I can cover it without any document as such. So I need some support basically, because we have to see the message structure, right? I can I I'm not sure like if we can imagine those. So
Yeah. So Chetan, what we can do is we can share any
right,
relevant documents on the Telegram group, and team can refer to them side by side. But
yes, that would be helpful.
yeah. So before we go into the structures, do we have any questions? So Chetan has covered Swift messages, procedures, rules, and we are now talking about in detail ISO 20022, which is our next generation of messages which will be used. And he is brilliantly using the layman terms. Even I am able to understand, right? Even when I'm not from payments domain. So that's thanks, Chetan, for making it so easy to understand. Parikshit, I'm aware that you asked about ISO 20022. So does that answer your question? Do you have any further doubts?
Yes, it does. Chetan, thank you for that. Just one more add on to that. So you suggesting someone to not like who's not from this domain to get some experience in Swift and then take up this challenge for the growth.
Right, Parikshit?
Okay, thank you. It does answer my question. Thank you both of you.
Yeah, thanks. So, anyone from our audiences, if they have any questions, feel free to join us. Murli, do you
I
have a
should try.
question?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah. So
go ahead.
Chetan, I have a couple of questions related to clearings when it comes to clearings, right? So yeah, basically I work from channel point of view, and so these questions I have based on purely based on whatever I heard my from my friends, or it's basically my assumptions. So please, I would like to get it clarified with you. The number one, the two questions are: first one is with the account clearing accounting entries, right? And the next one is with the deferred net settlement. So for the first question, for example, like you said that we are using HDFC to PNB, and every day at the end of the day, net position has been calculated. And what I was told is that even in that clearing system, so they will be having an account. HDFC will be having an account, and PNB will be having an account, which will be pre-funded. And at the same time, once the obligations are calculated, the obligations will be settled using the RTGS account held in RBI. So which is also pre-funded every day. So if the finally settlements are happening using RTGS account held in RBI, why do we use the clearing accounts that held in the clearing system? And why do we need to refund it? So if that's basically we are going to calculate the net positions, why do we have to fund that account with actual money? Eh, Is my question, my assumption correct, Chetan? This is how it works.
Yes, this is how it works. But your question is not clear. So you mean say when the payment is happening through RTGS. So the RTGS we are talking about that is between the banks, right? Between banks and RBI.
Chetan, question is, once even for our net payments, at the
Hmm.
end of the day, net positions are calculated, right?
Hmm.
And these
Right,
net positions, the obligations are getting settled using the RTGS account held in RBI. Is that correct?
right, right.
Okay. Now, what I heard from my friends is that even though the settlements are happening through RBI account, they will have one more additional account, the clearing account with the clearing system, and that account is also will be pre-funded every day. So why that is needed?
I'm not exactly sure of the clearing house, how exactly it works, but
Yeah.
from maybe what I can add some light is so the very first requirement, even the clearing house or like you mentioned RBI. So even when we any bank is open, so they have to anyway have some amount of its whole business, right? I think 5, 10, I'm not sure that number is. So they have to keep that amount of cash with them. The pre-funding and that having these accounts pre-funded is a way to basically uh, sorry, to avoid the risk in the payment system. So there can be like multiple type of risk we see, right? For example, when we are making a payment from one bank to another in a settled way. So we are deferring it. So real time, there is no issue, at least on the payment system risk. So this, I think it is called party risk. I'll need to check. But yes, so when we are deferring the payments, basically, there is a risk involved. What if the other bank, which is going to actually pay, so maybe uh, basically, in this case, when we are saying the nets or the deferred payment settlement, RBI is at risk, right? Because the payments is happening. So I am getting fund, if I am paying to somebody, the other party is getting paid, but the actual amount has not been transferred. So there is a risk involved. To mitigate that risk, basically, they have every one's like every bank's account with them and have them pre-funded with funds. Okay, so that it doesn't happen that okay, when we are actually at the end of the day, we are asking for payment from one bank and they are not able to pay it. So that's basically the concept behind the pre-funding, to avoid the risk in the payment system, especially in case of the deferred payment. I'm not sure if it helps.
Yes, so this helped me in some other context, and but I'm still not clear with that why two accounts are needed. Yes, I understand the risk involved with
Two
RBI. So
two accounts means two accounts with whom? So
yeah, that's right. One account is with the clearing system, one account with the
mhm.
RBI. Now
So
we are pay with
RBI.
the RBI account.
No, no, no. So why they need to deal with RBI? So the RBI that we say, RBI will have an account with bank at the time of when the bank actually starts. Okay. So the
Hmm.
payments is
Yeah.
a kind of a very a sub activity, right, of banking. So banking is not all about payments. Because the clearing is a concept very much related to payments. Okay. So whenever we are
Yeah.
talking about payments, it's their relation. So I mentioned before, RBI have an account with banks and keep it pre-funded with some not pre-funded, like they have to maintain some 10, I'm not sure about the numbers again, the 20% of their whole kind of business, or not business, I think it is related to the credit or the debit they have given, something like that. Okay, and that is again why. So if maybe like bank, so it's kind of a like that we have no, like gold loans, right? We offer gold to the, we keep it girvi to people so that we are taking loan on them. Now they keep it to avoid the risk of a bank going bankrupt. So if bank go bankrupt and they don't have anything, so it will be all lost, right? So it have happened multiple time in past. So at least they have some kind of security or asset of the bank in terms of that 10-15% whatever they keep, just to like to have that risk mitigated to some extent, right? So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
connection between RBI and bank and having those account is totally different from the payment system having an account, the bank having with a clearing system.
So something of security deposit, right?
Yes, yes, some kind of a security deposit. But again, they can't do it 100%, right? Because otherwise, what will
Mm-hmm.
they'll do? So they'll just keep some fraction of it. Like, otherwise, like everybody will say, okay, I want to open a bank, right? As if they don't
Right.
have to do anything else. So they have to, if they are dealing with a lot of money, then at least some percentage of it they have to put in cash so that liquidity can be maintained in case of something like happening like this, unforeseen situation.
Yeah.
2008.
Uh, I'm sorry if I'm not able to answer your question. Perhaps you can talk to me offline, and
Yeah. Yeah, Chitra, not a
I
problem.
might to try to like find out those things, because see, I'm not having full clarity. So my role, if
Yeah.
you try to understand, right? I am more into IT, right? So it's uh, I worked in the payment systems which are actually processing these kind of payments. Okay, so
Yeah, Chitra.
I'm not, yeah, so I
So
have
the
been
same
that
problem I'm
close.
also facing. I'm working in channels. So whenever I go for an interview, they when they ask for end-to-end questions. So in high level, yes, I'm able to answer. So when they dig deep, so that's when I get pulled out. So that's why I just want to get clear.
See, any domain you take, you can't, there is no way to say, right, that everybody is an
Hmm.
expert. So there is no
Yeah, yeah,
kind of, you keep learning all the times, right? So it's impossible to know all the things, right? Even we're talking about these message types, right? There are hundreds of these, and those have hundreds of fields. I can't remember those, right? I have to go back and refer to the official documentation whenever needed. And these change
Yeah.
as well. So these keep changing every year. Standards keep changing. So
Yes,
whatever
yes.
information I had last year, it might not be relevant today.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
So we'll try to see those figures. Maybe I'll learn something new as well. Just sorry, just yeah, just ping me like on the group.
Yeah, yeah, sure, Chetan.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks Molly for raising this up. Arvind?
Thank you, Chetan, for the wonderful session. So I believe the point you were trying to make was the CRR and the SLR, which is mandatory, and that part is the what you refer to as the RBI account, is it?
Yes. Yes, I think CRR is the term, right?
Uh,
I
Cash reserve
I
issue and
think
the statutory
yes.
debit ratio.
Is it like 5% or something? I'm not
It keeps
very
on
sure.
varying, I believe, depending upon the money supply. So to ensure that to ensure the bank run doesn't happen, and
Right,
banks has cash in hand, every time they
right.
need to make a payment, they do that. Also, one.
Thanks.
So that
Thanks.
is different, and the one which we are talking about the payment, that account is different.
That is totally different. Yes, that is totally
Okay.
different, right? So that is very much related to the payment system itself. Uh, so whenever we say the clearing and settlement, it is very much specific to payments. And that is like kind of a subsidiary of RBI dealing with that.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Clear. Thank you, Chetan.
Yeah, thanks, Arvind. Chetan, one question I'm thinking time and again, why do we need a clearing house? Banks can interact directly with each other, no?
So the very idea of having a clear house is the having control actually. Okay, so that's why we say, right, that it's a centralized system. Now, so you have seen like so many scams happening in the banks, uh, like very big scams, right? People will just like few people will team up and they will give fake loans, they will do so many other stuff. So I think like this is one area where it cannot be let loose. Okay, and if we
Right.
again think about so this is just one part of it, right? But I think it's more about having that control mainly.
Hmm.
So any payment is happening basically as of today. Now, if you think it is happening through the central bank, okay, so they have idea of what is happening in the system. So if they want to at some day want to just check or do something, they can do it. But if it is happening they without their knowledge, how they'll have control? Now there are different kind of what we say regulations as well in place. For example, we can talk about anti-money laundering obligations, right? Now these are kind of
Hmm.
there are even US regulations kind we have to follow. So there are a lot of different regulations, there are sanctions, right? So to do all those things, and for example, like again we talked about the cryptocurrencies, right? For example, if banks were dealing with themselves, like how RBI will even try to stop purchasing of like crypto, right? They can't do it. So now they are in full control. If they want, they can do that. So it's just about control from my
Hmm.
perspective.
Makes
And
sense.
yeah, and that's why basically, if you see, right, the why the banks are or the why the central authorities are scared of cryptocurrency. I like there are both pros and cons of this as well, right? Because if you have full control, then basically we can't track the illegal activities as well. So that's why sanctions are important as well. So we can't track the terrorist financing, we can't track all these. So anything, right, like very first thing we discussed, that anything we do, any business we do, okay, so that requires payment. So even for illegal activities, they are also dependent on the payment. So they need to get paid, they need to purchase like maybe what we say weapons, etc., right? So all this how it happens, it is happening through the legal systems only. But that's why there are so many regulation to protect us from that kind of risks. So that is again one key aspects that why we need control and these regulations.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. Thanks, Chetan. So just a quick reminder, we will be closing our room at 11:30 p.m. So in case you have any questions related to payments, you can join us now. Otherwise, we will not be able to take up your question. We have Joby with us. Hi, Joby. Joby, we are not able to hear you. Joby, you there? Joby, we are not able to hear you. Please leave the room and join us again. Thank you. Yeah, so in case you have any questions, this is kind of a last chance to join us on stage and we'll take up your queries. Joby, we can hear some background car horn noise, but we can't hear you.
Am I audible?
Uh, yes, we can hear you now. Yeah, hi,
Yes,
Joby.
yes, thanks. Yes, hi, thanks, Shipra, thanks, Chetan. So, yes, Chetan, thanks for the update. So, Chetan, just I would like to like understand, as you said about the international payment. So, being a operational guy, like I have worked in a bank, like I have dealt in this kind of TT transactions where which you have said like how this overall system is working. We have the idea, like as you said, like 103 is working, so all the fields and like for Swift code, big code, and IBAN numbers, what is important. So as like suppose someone who knows these things, so how like whether we can try for payment related projects, and what will the use cases and what and all things are happening in like as you said, like new series, this MX series. So what kind of use cases are there, so that we can relate in a better way.
Um, So, okay. Uh, do you have IT background? So I think the question is more around, if I understand correctly, that like how do we switch from the operational side to
No,
the
no, no,
kind of
not like
payment
that.
work?
My
Mhm.
concern is like I am having the operational background. Like we know like okay how things are working, how actually real time how things are working, and what kind of real challenges we are facing. And
Mhm.
I know like the payment side it is quite hot right now, as like European and US market they are so so.
Sorry, I think we lost you.
Joby, we are not able to hear you anymore.
Okay, let me try to answer whatever I got. So maybe you mean to say how do you keep yourself up to date with these different developments around the payments? So I think for that LinkedIn is the one of the best source, I'd say. So there are a lot of people. I personally follow many of like specialists from payment industry. So it's good to, because see again, at the end of the day, what as see we have our own work priority, right? And we at most of the times like we'll be stuck with our work. Our complete focus would be on the ongoing things, right? The targets that we have to meet in short term. So, but again, like this is something that we have to balance it out. So we actually have to. It's important for the career growth as well, like to grow professionally, to keep to have an kind of horizontal view of things. So you can try to, I think there are many some websites as well, right? So those there are people who share insights from their own experience or from the industries. There are a lot of industry forums as well. So perhaps you can ping me online. I can share some of those with you, or maybe I can share it with all the audience, maybe at least people I know. so who keep sharing information around the payments area. So yeah, I think that's the way like we can keep up our understanding what is happening around the globe.
Yes, Chetan, it will be really helpful. If you can paste those websites on Telegram group, at least the BA Telegram group, the BA Club Telegram group, it will be helpful to all.
I'll club them together and perhaps try to share. Okay, maybe
Yes.
I'll need to see like there are people actually whom I follow, so maybe I can share those as well.
Alternatively, people can go to Chetan's profile on LinkedIn and follow the people which Chetan follow, right? So maybe that will help as well. So thanks Chetan for that. We have a question in chat on what are the websites. So yes, Chetan will be sharing those websites on our BA Club Telegram group. So if you are joining us for the first time, uh, we have a Telegram group, the BA Club, wherein we post the links for our upcoming sessions. We usually host a session every Saturday 9:30 p.m. related to BA and domain related sessions. So do join us regularly for such interesting topics. So Chetan, in the interest of time, we don't have much time. So can we quickly discuss the structure of messages in maybe let's say 10-15 minutes, and then we'll take up any other questions and close the room. Will that do? I think we lost Chetan, so let's wait for some time for him to join back. Yeah, Chetan, you there? Chetan, you are on mute. Chetan, Chetan, you are on mute.
Hello,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, we lost you for some
Uh,
time. Yes,
yes. So can I just share one document on the group and
yeah, sure.
people can refer to this?
Yes, please post it on the BA Club Telegram group.
Just give me a moment.
Yeah, Chetan will be posting a document on Telegram group. Request all to refer to that. It will help in navigating uh, the teachings that Chetan is sharing with us.
Just give me a moment, please. Instructions.
So, in the meanwhile, just to quickly reset the room, we are talking about payments domain and how payments work. And we have learned a lot of new terminologies today related to payments: credit, debit, payer, pay, Swift messages, ISO 20022 standards, procedures, rules, clearing, settlement. So all different terms we have learned today. So, in case you have any doubts, feel free to join us on stage. We still have roughly 25 minutes left in our session today. So, do join us on stage in case you have any questions to ask Chetan. So,
Okay. So I think I have shared the document. Can you please
mhm.
refer to
Yes.
page number, perhaps to start with 56? So I think I have anyway shared this document, so I'll not go much into all of this. So there's a lot of theory basically that you can read out from there. So it basically when the Swift starts, so it offers different services. So it talk about those services, for example, SwiftNet, which is one of the most important one. Now finally, just I think you can come to page number 62, which talk about the Swift ISO 15022 message structure. Okay, so every Swift message, so every the traditional Swift message, it will have five different blocks. Okay, so first block, it is called, you can read it out anyway, basic header block, then application header, then the user header, then the text block. Apart from first block, rest all are non-mandatory, so those are optional. But the actual information in most cases actually will be in the fourth block. Okay, so let's just see like one by one perhaps. And again, I don't want to go into very much detail, but just how do we basically read a message when we see a Swift message, be it any message, how can you read that message or try to understand that message? So each character here, so you're on the next page, basically you'll be seeing one example. So there is a curly bracket, then there is one, then there is what we say, what we call them, I'm not sure, two dots, right? So these first two characters, so it's like whatever the content you see in this block is not like rubbish, but it is a very defined, well defined, which actually is given on the next page itself. So see A, B, C. So we have basically divided that into different characters, and each and everything it means something. So the very first A or one it denotes the block number. So the second block it will have two, third block it will be three, and then fourth block it will be a four. So that's where we see the in the very first image as well, the typical message. Now, then if they see the B, the next character, so it means something. So it can have three values. So if you try to understand this message, this is kind of a the first two for this three. No, sorry, the first two blocks are positional based. Okay, so we understand the value based on the position. So when we say first position, it means something. So it is a one character field, which can be F, which can be A, which can be L. Then the second one is a two kind of two character field, which means something. Okay, so that is given there. Okay, what each of these means. So A means something, B means something. I have written it down in the document itself. If you see D now, so D is important. So D basically is a 11 character field, I think. Yes, 11 or sorry, 12. So this is basically the sender. Okay, and this becomes important. We'll see now. Like again, first we are trying to understand our target is to understand this message, its content. Then we'll see why we need and what we do with these fields. Okay, so that is the next steps that we need to understand. So we first understand these are the fields that we have. D is something called big. Okay, and it is again a very standard term used across banking or especially in the payments. So big basically help us to identify a bank or its branch. Okay, and this big itself, it is having a very defined structure. So the very first four character, it will give you the bank name. Okay, so this is very much similar to what we have in India as IFSC code. Okay, you know the IFSC code, right? So this is kind of an international equivalent, is big. So because IFSC is very much local to India. Now IFSC code is also helping us to define a bank or its branch. So when we want to send a payment, we need to define, okay, this is the branch of the where the account is held. Almost same similar is this one. So the very first four character, it will give you the name of the bank. Next two character gives you the country of the bank. So for example, here bank BE, so it's just a rubbish one, but uh, BE actually is a country. I think it is Belgium or something. I'm not sure. Okay, so like
Mhm.
every bank, for example, Barclays UK. Barclays UK is will always start with Bark GB. So GB is their Great Britain is their like two-digit country codes. Okay, so that is basically a two-digit country code which define the country of that branch or the BIC we are talking about. So it could be even Bark BB, which is stands for the Mumbai here. Okay, so Bark BB tells us that this is Barclays Bank Mumbai branch. Okay, so this is how it works. The next two character, I think it gives us the branch name, and you can just read about this. I'm not really sure, even been some time. So this is first block. The next block again, it's important. So you see the two and that dots are basically telling us the it is second block. The next character is very important. So it gives us the direction of the payment. Okay. So it, and the next one gives the field C, basically tells the name of the message. So by looking at these two fields, we know that okay, what is this message we are talking about? Anything uh, anything after that is basically very much dependent on the message. So for example, here it is, in this example it is 100. Okay, so what we are talking about now, and oh, one more. Okay, just take the next field as well, which is D here in this one as well, but again it is similar, right? If you see, it is uh, bank DEFF XXX. So this is called the receiver in this case. Okay, the first one, first block it was sender, then this is the receiver bank's pick, and here again bank is like rubbish. DE gives us the Germany. Okay, so it's a payment. So now looking at just these two blocks, what information we have? We know that this is incoming message. Okay, incoming in context of. Okay, so whenever this symbol is, it is always in context of the SWIFT. Okay, so when what we are saying, right, then the banks are transferring using SWIFT. So any bank, it will send the payment first to SWIFT. SWIFT will send it to the other party. Similar to what we have like a clearing system. So SWIFT is acting as a international kind of communication layer. So anything, all these messages go to first to the SWIFT. So when we say I, that means it is incoming to SWIFT or the outgoing from the bank. Okay, the bank have sent this message to Swift. What else we know from the field C? We know that it is a empty 100 message type. Okay, what we know, this is sent by a some bank name. So bank name is not there anyway, but some bank which is there in the Belgium, right? To some bank, some big which is there in the Germany. So just looking at these two headers, we are able to get at least these basic details. Now, even before I like move further, why these details are needed, and again, why we see this is just a message, right? We talked about. So this is the actual key things here is the information that we are after, right? So message structure is mostly going to remain same. So all the message will have these five headers, but it's the content that will keep changing. And then based on those content, then we do the payment processing, which is again the key in the whole system. So now any payment system, for example, like we can say one famous is Finacle, which is Infosys uh, product. Okay, then there is GPP, very much famous product, Finestra. So there are multiple products in the market, but all the products, they will work on the same way, right? They had to parse this message. They will pick all these fields from these positions. Okay, so they will pick and they will store this information in their system or for the further processing. Now see this one more like very in very start we discuss about like having those basics checks. So the payment processor is now doing these checks on this message. So whenever we are getting this message, they will first check, okay, it is it valid format. Okay, format, at least the very basic format is valid. Then they will go into these fields. Okay, they'll try to understand. For example, if the first page number this 64, the first block or maybe like even second block, the field D, right? So this field D is giving us the big, and big have a definite standard. If we give an invalid big here, so again we are talking about the, this is actually a rubbish example because the it will never go to the payment. So the Swift will ignore it or reject this payment if we send something like that. But just for an example, so if the a valid uh, invalid value is supplied, if an invalid big is there, the payment will never process, right? Because we need a valid big from the sender party or the receiver party. Okay, now just go next block. The third block is then called user block and kind of optional block, and it is more kind of facilitating special cases. We'll come to it later, but again, we'll see something new here at least, okay, that we will use at a later stage. So if you see the third block, when it start three these sort do dots, then again there is a separate sub block you'll see, not one but two sub blocks and B and C. Okay, now these sub blocks becomes important here. This is how the individual tag level information. So now the first two blocks we have seen, the information was character or position based. But this third block, basically we have now the concept of these tags. Okay, the tags or the fields we say. So anything before the colon, finally I got its name. So finally before the colon, the left hand side of the column is the field name or the tag name, and the right hand side we have the value of this. Okay, so the first or the B here, what we are having, we have a tag name called 113, and the tag name have value 9601. Okay, I'm just not going into detail what it is. Even I don't know 113, but I'll have, there are some specific cases we'll see, and it's mentioned in the document as well if you go down or maybe want to read around it. So quickly going to the next, uh, what we say, block. Okay, this is like the most important block, and that's where the most of the key information will be there. Now you already see like it is a fourth block. You see lot of things here, but the same concept apply here as well. But here you'll see the fields clubbed between two colons. Okay, we just jump to. Just give a moment. Where we can see the example? Yes. Can you just jump to page number 77? Page number 77, we have a sample message, and I think it is not a very correct one, but it will still be useful for us. So if you see here, fourth block started, and it is actually the information is more in organized way. Sample message, but it is more organized. We had an example earlier, but we'll not get much from there. So if you see here, if you see there is a colon, then there is some value, then again colon. So whatever value which is sandwiched between these two colons are the tag name or the field name, and anything like after that colon, it's the value of it. Now each of this tag or the field name have a specific, very specific meaning. For example, whenever I'm talking about field 20, it is going to be a, I think, sender reference or reference. Okay, it is a reference of the payment reference. And now similarly, there is field 21, which is also kind of reference, which is called related reference. So uh, each of these fields have a very specific meaning to it, so that we actually and that is defined by Swift, and it is also available in the public domain. So we can basically, we need to actually, if you want to learn, so you basically need to know what these fields mean. And again, that's why I said like you need to have some longer term target, because with time you will automatically remember everything because you'll be seeing it a lot of like many frequently. All the messages will have this key field. For example, 32A. Okay, so 32A is having three different information here. It first like this number, it is giving us the value date, on which date the payment should be processed. Then it is giving us currency, then it is giving us the payment value. Okay, similarly, if you see 50K, it will mean something, 59, it will mean something. So all these fields are important, and we need to know them at least, like that's the very basics, the key fields, we need to know them. Then only we will understand the like whole structure. So now if you see, right, 50K, okay, I'm not sure. Do we have time? Um, I wanted to cover
Yeah.
actually key participants. Okay, can we just please jump quickly to page number 80? Okay, in this basically you'll see at least key parties we were earlier talking, right? Sender, receiver. So if you see, it start with this whole chain. It start with 50 and then 59. The 50 is the ordering customer, okay, the actual sender, and 59 is the beneficiary, the actual one who is getting paid. Okay, these are actually mandatory. Rest or all are optional. And why these many fields? So at least one, two we understand, right? Sending institution or the sending bank. Okay, again the account with institution is basically the receiver bank. Now there is lot of other things if you see here. Sender, correspondent, receiver, constant, third party, intermediary. These are some kind of like complicated cases, or uh, I'm not sure how do I tell them, but maybe we can cover those in next session. So what we have seen as of today is very simple example of payment, right? When I am there, you are there, simple domestic payment. But international payments can get very complicated. So we will see, like, so that's where these different parties come into the picture. Okay, so I think like at least what I have mentioned, or one should be able to at least understand a message looking at it and basically understand these payments. I'll also share the link of the these documents basically from where this has been picked up. So basically, which defines all these fields line wise. Okay, field 20 is this, and even the format. Okay, so just okay, I think that I can cover. I'm not sure we have time. But if you see each field also, it will have some format to it. Okay, so all the fields have format, and how Swift have defined and given it is that something to understand. So perhaps you need to go to page number 72 and 73. With 73 is having example, and 72 is having different kind of nomenclature. Okay, how Swift have defined it. So if you see page number 73, there an example. Example says like for exclamation mark C bracket slash 30x. Okay, now if you try to understand this, this will not make any sense. But if you look at the previous page and try to see, then you will get some sense of it. Okay, so basically when it is n, we are referring to digits or numbers, right? When it is h, we are talking about uppercase hexamer. So now based upon that, if we try to explain this what we say, nomenclature or format of fields, then what we know that this field can contain four upper letter alphanumeric. How? Four is basically the number we have, and then exclamation is, it is, I think it is means it is a fixed field. Does it mention somewhere? No, I think it is a fixed length. So four means four fixed length alphanumeric. Uppercase I think comes from the C. Okay, so it is C. So that's why we are saying four fixed, which is fixed alphanumeric. Okay, so first three character means for four uppercase alphanumeric characters. Then bracket tells us it's an optional, slash 30. So first character is slash, followed by the 30 characters x, and total if you see the count is 35. So what is this defining basically? That is some field which is having this structure, it has to follow this structure itself. It should have its first four character as uppercase alphanumeric. If it is not, basically, so this is a kind of a Swift rule. Example, if it is not this way, then Swift or the network will reject it. Okay. So now if you try to understand all these things together, going back to the very main structure, the structure or a very high level, all the message will have similar structure. What difference they will have? they might have some other fields. Okay, so one might have maybe 20 fields, the other might have 25. Some new fields are introduced. If there is a field called 20, it will mean same in every message. Okay, so it is not possible that in one message we are saying field 20 is having reference number, other it is having name. No, that is not possible. If a field is defined, it will behave the same way, be it in any message. So different messages can use these fields. Okay, so these fields can be overloaded. If we see like the C example, so different messages can use these same fields, but their meaning will not change. So understanding these fields is important. Then every field have a format as well. Okay, like the one we are seeing an example. So it looks like an example of the what do we say? The name, perhaps not actually name. Uh, there are some keywords. Basically, when we are say four characters, right? There are multiple keywords which mean specific things. So perhaps maybe I'm not sure. Okay, I don't remember any example as well, but maybe I'll take that example sometimes. So it's important to understand key messages. Now going back, now the overall structure, the five, so it is almost same for all the messages. All not so it's always same for all the messages. Key fields, which will work for all the messages, and finally the content or the format or content of those fields. Okay, so when we say 32, we know that 32 is going to talk about the value, date, and amount. Okay, when we say 50, field 50 is going to talk about the ultimate sender party or the sender of the payment. Field 59, it will always talk about the beneficiary. Field 71, it will always talk about the charges, like that, so and so. Okay, so we need to understand those fields, their content, and then we proceed to the next step. So how do we basically use these fields or the information? Okay, and what we do with that? Okay, for example, so if there is an account number, what we are going to do with it? We are going to check if that account number is valid or not, right? Or then if that account is having fund or not. So these are the steps that a payment processor will follow, or the payment engine will follow. Okay, I think we are running out of time. Any question quickly? So that's where basically I wanted to end at least. So you can explore a lot of things now to understand these payments type, their formats. You can already start going on to this before we like further go into more depth and try to talk about different, what we say, different clearinghouse. Maybe look at how they works. For example, SEPA, some other networks, etc. Then one part is looking at the payment engine side to understand, okay, what are the different steps involved. For example, the fund check or the accounting or the sanction check. So maybe in a sequence, what kind of rules that are there. Okay, thank you. I think
Yeah, thanks,
I'll stop.
Chetan. Thanks a lot. This was really beneficial, especially for someone who aims to work in payments domain, so they know from where to start. And thanks a lot. So this is last call out for any queries if you have for Chetan. Otherwise, we will be closing the room shortly. So let us know in case you have any queries. Feel free to join us on stage. Otherwise, Chetan, this was really helpful session. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Shipra, for inviting me over. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, Arvind.
Thank you, Chetan. Thank you, Shipra. It was a really insightful session. Learned a lot of things. Thank you, Chetan, again.
Thanks, Arvind, for joining us today.
Thank you, Chetan. So the session was really helpful. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next session on payment engines and web applications. It was really helpful. Thank you, Shipra, for organizing.
Yeah, you're welcome, Murli.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on stage today. So thanks all. Thanks, Chetan. Thanks everyone for joining us
Thanks,
today.
everyone.
See you next
Bye. Good
time.
night.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Good
Good night.
night.